Hello students, in the last class we have seen the solution of displacement, how exactly that looks like on the time axis. So if you have on x-axis time and on y-axis displacement, then how exactly the solution of the displacement of mass varies with respect to time is what we have seen in the last class. And that time we assumed that the mass was vibrating in the vertical direction. Now we'll go back to our old notion where we were assuming that mass is vibrating in the horizontal direction. Now this is the new figure, which is kind of a rotated version of what we have seen in the last class. This black colored circle is what is mass, and this red colored graph that you see over here, on which right now I am moving my mouse. Okay, so that graph is the same displacement curve which we have seen in the last class. So on y-axis you have time over here this time. Rather than having it on x-axis, we are plotting it on y-axis, and x-axis is representing the displacement. Now this displacement of the mass can also be achieved, as we have already discussed, by using a fictitious particle, which I have kind of denoted over here by this red circle. So this red circle is that fictitious particle. As the time changes, as the time progresses, this fictitious particle moves along the circle with a constant angular velocity, and its projection on the x-axis changes as it moves, and that is what is the location of the mass. So this motion of this fictitious particle in a way is capturing motion of this mass. Let me run this code for you so that you will be able to see how exactly motion of that fictitious particle is capturing motion of the mass. See, you might have observed that the projection of that fictitious particle always showed you the position of the mass, and the same thing you can always represent that by using this graph. Either you represent it by using this graph where you have on time, where you have on y-axis time specified and on x-axis you have displacement specified, or you can capture the same stuff by using this rotating fictitious particle along the circle. Now we have seen in the last class that this mass did not start its journey either at the extremity or in the or at the mean position. Why it did so? Because the kind of initial conditions that we have given, both of them are non-zero. So initial, this time we have I've kind of changed the initial velocity condition. It was 2 last time. I have intentionally changed it to 3. I'll be telling you the reason afterwards. Okay, so initial displacement is 0.2 and initial velocity is 3 units, and rest is all kept constant, and both these quantities are non-zero. So as both these quantities are non-zero, this mass block is starting its journey somewhere in between the mean position and the extremity, and corresponding to that mass block, the position of this fictitious particle is over here. This is the beginning. At the start, this position of the fictitious particle is defined over here. Now, can we arrive at this position by using these two quantities? Yes, we can arrive at that. Let me kind of run this code once again in that regard, okay, so that you will be able to see that by yourself. Okay, so I have kind of added few more lines and circles to the same graph. Okay, the blue line and green line, these are the two lines which I have added, and blue circle and green circle. So these two circles have also been added. Now this red line, which is a newly added line, can be thought of as a position vector of this fictitious particle. So red line is the position vector of this fictitious particle, and you can obtain this position vector by summation of this green vector and blue vector. What is the green vector? Green vector, which is directed along the x-axis, is having length equal to x0, okay, which is 0.2 units. This is the length of this green vector, which you will be able to observe it. Okay. It's 0.2, and this blue vector has got its length equal to x dot 0 divided by x dot 0 divided by omega n, okay, which is this one, okay, length of this, and summation of these two vectors will give you this new vector, which is position vector of this fictitious particle, what will be the, in that case, what will be the length of this position vector? Length of the position vector, you can obtain that as square of two quantities, that is square of this length plus square of this length. Square root of that will give you what is the length of this position vector. So I'll need square of initial velocity plus square of initial, this is initial displacement, square of initial displacement plus square of initial velocity by omega n, this quantity, okay, and square root of this addition will give me this length of this fictitious particle's position vector. Now you will be able to appreciate that this is the radius, which essentially means that is the distance between the extremity and the mean position. So how off this mass particle will go from the mean position? This will go off from the mean position equal to this much amount of distance. Okay. Now you will be able to see that this position vector is inclined with respect to x-axis by this much amount of angle. So what is this angle? This is in the negative direction. We generally measure angles in the positive direction. I mean, we say angle is positive when we are going in the anti-clockwise direction. Now we are having this angle, either you can say that this much angle in anti-clockwise direction or this much angle in clockwise direction. So what is this angle? This is minus of tan inverse of y, which is this, that is xd0 divided by omega n. This is y coordinate, and x coordinate is x0. So if you do so, you will get the tan, but this will be in radians. I don't want it in radians, so I'll convert it in this thing, degrees. So it comes out to be equal to minus 56.31. Okay, so this angle, if you see, this is minus 56 units. So this angle is minus 56. So you can say that in that case, that in the beginning the fictitious particle is kind of lagging behind this x-axis by this much amount of angle. Now with this angle minus 56 units, minus 56 degrees, and this length of this position vector, I can clearly tell where to position this fictitious particle. So I can clearly tell the position vector of that fictitious particle in the beginning, which is having a units of length, which we'll be calling as amplitude, which is amplitude of oscillation, which is equal to this quantity, square root of these two additions of these two quantities, and that is what we'll be referring to as a, amplitude of oscillation. A units is the length of that, and we can represent it that that particular position vector as a units of length and phi angle, where phi is equal to minus 56. So if you know a and if you know phi, you can draw this fictitious particle at that position vector. Now as the time progresses, you will be able to see that certain additional angle will be added to it. Okay, and how much angle will be added to it? The addition of angle will be equal to omega, which is omega n into t, because we are assuming that this particle is rotating with a constant angular velocity. Omega n is not varying with respect to time. Omega is constant for all time instances. So for constant omega n, addition of the angle will be equal to omega n times t. So what is the time elapsed between two instances? So accordingly, this much amount of angle will be added. So the total angle will be equal to this. We'll be calling this as the phase. Okay, so this will tell you what is the phase, and you will be able to appreciate you can get the position of this mass as A times cosine, which is a projection of this position vector on the x-axis itself. So A times cosine of phi plus omega nt. If you don't include that negative sign in the phi, then you can write down in this way, that A times cosine of minus omega nt, A times cosine of omega nt minus phi, which essentially means that this curve, which is this curve, is lagging behind the cosine curve, cosine omega nt curve, by this much amount of angle. So phi is the angle with which this curve is lagging behind the cosine curve. Or you could have also written this as A times sine of omega nt plus a different angle phi 2, okay, where phi 2 I would have measured it in this way. Okay, so I could have said that this displacement variation leads the sine curve by this phi 2 angle, where phi 2 angle will be equal to phi 2, I can write down as equal to A tan of x0 divided by xd0 by omega n. I'll again be converting into degrees, this one, so which comes out to be equal to 33 units, 33.669, so 34 units. So this angle is 34 units. So in that case you can say that this curve, this displacement curve, leads the sine curve by this much amount of angle. So this angle we can say as phase of that mass particle to start with. So you can measure the phase either with respect to sine curve or cosine curve. The typical way in which most of the people kind of consider it is in the cosine, with respect to the cosine function. So we'll always be, in most of the cases at least, we'll be representing vibration of the mass particle in this fashion: A times cosine of omega n times t minus phi, okay, where phi is calculated as A tan of xd0 by omega n divided by x0. Okay, so this angle is, what is this, phi, and omega nt is the addition of the angle as the time increases. So as the time increases, there is some angle addition, and hence this fictitious particle moves along this circle as the angle is increasing. So while you will be representing your motion of your mass by using this one, this is something that we'll be calling it as a phase, and that phase changes with respect to time because of this quantity, which is omega n times t. This quantity is adding up to the phase. And what was the phase to start with? Phase was this much, minus phi to start with. So you started with this, so you were kind of lagging behind the cosine curve by this much amount of angle. This is the phase angle, we'll be calling it as a phase angle. And what is the amplitude of this position vector? Amplitude of position vector is this. Now once you know the amplitude of position vector and once you know the phase angle, you will be able to capture the motion of the mass. You'll be able to capture where the mass is located, and mass location is this, A times cosine of this. Okay, so this A times cosine of this phase angle. So obtain the phase, get the cosine of that, multiply by the amplitude, and you get the position of the mass. So in this case, so when we are not representing the displacement variation in this way, but by using the fictitious particle, then what we'll be doing is we'll be kind of drawing this position vector, and this position vector will be rotating with respect to time. So at any time instance, if you take the snapshot, let me run this code, okay, and we'll stop it and we'll take the snapshot at certain time. Okay, so we are running this code, and now I'll take snapshot, right? Okay, I have taken the snapshot of it. Unfortunately, that black circle has been erased off. Okay, I'm so sorry for that, but you will be able to appreciate that black circle was somewhere over here. Okay, So this was the location of the black circle to start with. Okay, so new black circle is yet to be drawn, and earlier black circle has been erased. That's why you are not able to see the black circle. But assume that mass particle is over here, and this is the fictitious position of that fictitious particle, and this is the position vector that you are talking about. And this much amount of angle it has advanced. So this particular position vector, it was here initially to start with. It started its journey from here, and then it went on, and now it is over here. And by the time the fictitious particle has started its journey from here and reached over here, mass started its journey from here and reached over here. Okay, so you could have also represented this by this graph, and this graph we are stopping over here at this location. Okay, so this blue part, the blue line is taking care of this term, sorry, this term. Okay, this green line is taking care of this term. Okay, so if you do so, if you take linear combination of these two, then you will get this one. Okay, and projection of that will give you what is the position of the mass, and hence we'll be calling, as we just now I told you, we'll be calling this as a phase diagram. Okay, because it is capturing phase. So how much amount of phase has kind of elapsed, or what is the phase of that particular mass at that particular motion. Okay, at that particular instance, that will tell, that you will be able to find out by using this diagram. So this will be called as phase diagram. Here you don't have time coming in explicitly. In this diagram, which was this red circle, sorry, not red circle, this red curve, you were getting time axis explicitly on y axis side. But here, when you are representing fictitious particle, at that time you don't get to see time axis explicitly, but the angle is something that is capturing that time axis, and that it is capturing in this fashion, omega n times t. Okay, so time is coming with omega n. So with that much amount of angle, at each time the phase is modifying. Okay, so let's try to complete this. Complete this. We'll have a look at it once again. Yes, so we have started the simulation once again. Now see the black circle, which is that mass block, and how it is obtained by the fictitious particles motion, and that can be obtained by position vector, which is vector sum of this blue line and this green line. Okay, so by using that, you can find out the position vector of the fictitious particle over here, and this is initial phase. With changing time, this phase advances, and you get to see the motion of the mass accordingly. Okay, so this is what is the phase representation. So this is sufficient for today. We'll stop over here, and in the next class we'll try to solve a couple of examples.